Hello, good morning. Hello, I-doers. I hope we're live. Not quite sure if we are, but this is not sitting right with my microphone. Let's get this sorted. Hello, everybody, all you I-doers out there, and welcome to this wee video coming to you from a very beautiful day here in central Scotland. The sun is shining. Spring is very much knocking on the door, and hopefully she is bringing glad tidings of better days. We hope, we can only hope, eh? And because of that, because there seems to be a wee bit of a shift going on in people, especially around ceremony, because I have had loads of ceremony inquiries in the last couple of weeks. I probably have had more in the last couple of weeks than I've had in the last few months, and mostly all for 2021. So we've got some real optimistic couples out there who are hoping to have some sort of ceremony before the close of this year, which is just wonderful. And so I thought, as the days get brighter and lighter and there's something energetic in the air, I thought it might be a nice idea to start these wee videos again where I come on and talk about ceremony and rituals and Scotland and all the beautiful places that you can have these ceremonies in Scotland. I can't quite get out and about and do my bra videos to be in these locations and to bring you videos from there. Not quite allowed to do that yet, but I can come on and talk to you about ceremony and rituals and these lovely, just the lovely aspects of ceremony that you might want to think about. I know there are a lot of my I Do couples on this page, either that are getting married or having vow renewals this year, but indeed next year, 2022 as well. So if you're on watching this, I know I can see a few people are on watching it, let me know who you are and where you're listening in from. And Facebook, I've got a new setup with live videos. I can't always see people. I can't see who's actually watching unless you come on and leave me a comment and tell me. But yes, let's talk ceremony and ritual. Because when it comes to ceremony, and regardless of what it is, whether it's a marriage ceremony, a baby name, and a vow renewal, I am on a bit of a mission to change how the couples I work with, the people I work with, the celebrants I work with, because I also run celebrant training in Scotland, and so I do a lot of celebrant training, but how we think about ceremony, not just them, me included, how we think about ceremony and how we connect with the deep meaning of ceremony and the potential that ceremony has for bringing great depth and meaning to whatever it is you are doing. Now, as human beings, ceremony is in our blood. You know, none of us got here by chance or just appeared here, you know, in the last, I'm 56 years old this year, but, you know, I haven't really just been here for the last 56 years. I come from this long line of ancestors, this ancient line of ancestors that stretches right back to the first humans who ever walked the earth. And for those early humans, ceremony was a very intrinsic part of how they lived their lives. Back then, people had ceremony to mark every occasion and every life event, from the changing of the seasons, the turning of the moon, for when they were planting seeds in the fields and when they were bringing the harvest in. There would be a ceremony for everything, but also for these major life events. Whenever a life came into the community, it would be celebrated through ceremony. Whenever a young person got to the age where they were no longer a child, not quite an adult, and in that period of a great uncertainty within them, that would be celebrated through a coming of age ceremony, something that is really lacking in our society. You know, for our young people, coming of age, cigarettes, drugs, and sex. But back then, that would be celebrated, and these young people would usually have been given some sort of challenge, some sort of task. They would go out into the forest and they would hunt. And if you were a woman, a girl, you would go with the elders, the council of female elders, and they would teach you to cook and how to look after your young. And so there was these beautiful teachings, this beautiful learning. But the young person was very much recognised as an important member of the community and was welcomed into the community as such. We don't do that anymore. But when couples came together to become husband and wife, to come together in this sacred union, it was celebrated. And of course, when it came to the end of your life and you were moving on in your journey, that was also, there would be great ceremony, great reverence given to the fact that your life here on earth had ended and you were now, your soul was now off somewhere else. Ceremony was, as I say, as natural to them as breathing. And of course, and a mishealing. So whenever somebody would be unwell, whenever somebody would be, if there was discord within the community, they would have ceremony. They would have healing ceremonies to bring everybody back together, or healing ceremonies where there would be some sort of shaman in the community, some sort of healer, and there would be ceremony performed to bring healing to that person, or indeed to the community. How beautiful does that sound? And yet, here we are in 2021, and ceremony has really become, when we think about ceremony, we usually think of these very formal events. So a wedding ceremony, or a baby naming ceremony, a funeral service. And we don't even think of funeral services in terms of ceremony. We think of it as something very formal and something you have to get through, rather than something that you stop to pause and be really present and to really honour this life that's been. And even when we break that down further, a lot of times if we take, for example, a wedding ceremony, over the years it's become much more about everything else that's in the day as opposed to the ceremony itself. So the dress, the cake, the catering, the flowers, the venue, everything else usually is given far, far more energy and focus than the part that's right in the heart of it. The ceremony itself, this beautiful, sacred gathering, this sacred circle into which a couple steps with the intention of giving themselves to each other, or certainly giving parts of themselves to each other, and to walk the rest of their life's journey together. And that's terribly, terribly sad, I think, because when you do get those ceremonies where couples do get that, they really understand the importance of the ceremony itself. It just changes everything because they become really present and their focus is not lost in the add-ons, if you like. But one of the things that COVID has done is it's kind of brought people back to the true meaning of ceremony, because of course, because of the virus, a ceremony and number-wise has shrunk. And I've been very fortunate since this time last year, really, that I've conducted many of these, they're getting called micro weddings, tiny weddings, small weddings, intimate weddings, but they are ceremonies that to me are really true ceremonies when we think back to what I've just been talking about. two people coming together, not caught up in the sort of commercialized part of it, but really focused on why they're doing this, why they're stepping in to this sacred circle, and why it is they want to make these vows to each other, why they want to spend their life together. What is marriage? What does marriage mean to us? Or why are we renewing our vows? Why don't we just keep going the way we've been going? So they start to ask themselves all these questions. And I've noticed that the conversations I'm having with couples are much deeper. They're much deeper, and they're much more meaningful, which is really, really beautiful. But if we go back to the beginning of time, when these people, our ancestors, who walked the planet, who would wander, stravaig. Stravaig is a Scottish word that just means wander. That would stravaig around the Mother Earth. Would sit round fires at night to keep warm, and would look up at the stars and the moon, and during the day the sun, and would ask each other, what is this? What do we think this is? And where do we come from? And so we'd ask the questions that we are still asking ourselves today. And but they would be very much in connection with Mother Earth and everything, because it was Mother Earth that was sustaining us back then, wasn't it? We got our food from what was grown in the land. We got our water from the water that was flowing through the land. We built places to stay, or we lived in caves, or we built places to stay through the trees. And so everything, the land was sustaining us. And so ceremony was often about giving gratitude for that. And if we planted seeds and they grew into a beautiful harvest, we had a ceremony to thank the different gods, or to thank Mother Earth for giving us this abundance. And if for some reason it was a terrible harvest, we had a ceremony to say sorry for whatever we'd done, to anger or to upset Mother Nature, so that our seeds didn't grow. But from the very, very beginning, as part of ceremonies, people would involve rituals. And if we bring it to 2021, rituals have become a kind of, again, a kind of add-on. We want one of those rituals, whereas actually a ritual is a ceremony itself. So a ceremony can be a ceremony within a ceremony within a ceremony within a ceremony. If you think of all these circles getting drawn, that's what a ceremony really is like. Or certainly that's what an I do ceremony is like. But again, if you go back to when people were going to stand in stones, or just creating ceremonies where they sat and they would give wee offerings, they would light the fire and throw something into the fire to say thank you, or they would offer a sacrifice, often an animal sacrifice, as a way of saying thank you. But that was to symbolise their gratitude and their love and their belief, or whatever you want to call it. And throughout the ages, rituals have been used in ceremony as a way of symbolising something much deeper, much more meaningful. If you think of the Scottish flag, let's think of the Scottish flag, the saltire flag. It's just a blue and white flag, isn't it? Or is it? No, because whenever you see it, whenever a Scottish person sees it, it means far, far more to them. It symbolises far, far more to them than just the colour blue and white. And if you asked everybody in Scotland, there would be some common themes, but you might get different things. It means being part of this wonderful Scottish community. It means William Wallace and the Battle of Stirling Bridge. It means this ancient land of ours that for thousands of years has been here, and there's no place like it. So there's loads of different things that flag symbolises. But the one thing it does is when you look at it, it touches something in you, and it creates meaning for you that can't be explained just by two colours on a piece of material. And so today, when we see ceremonies, and we have these beautiful ceremonies, we see these rituals that often couples ask for them to be put in, but they don't really know why. And the truth is that every time you have a symbol in your ceremony, it is a visual representation of some deeper symbology. And rituals are wonderful. I love them. I absolutely love them. Some people love them, some people hate them, because not only do I think they bring this deep meaning, but they are also, for me, a connection back to that ancient lineage, back through our ancestors to the first people that sat round a fire, sharing a drink or whatever it might have been, and trying to work out what we're all doing here. And so today I thought, because there are many rituals and I love them all, especially the Scottish ones, today I thought I would talk a wee bit about the Quaich ceremony. And I have 3 quaichs here, and I'm using that term ceremony and ritual interchangeably. I know that because, as I said, the Quaich ceremony is a ceremony itself within your big ceremony. Now I'm just confusing you. But the Quaich is this beautiful ritual that symbolises unity and trust, really. And these are, they're basically cups. They're basically cups, old Scottish cups. And they've been used in Scotland for centuries as a way of welcoming people into your home, into your life, and also as a way of bidding farewell to people. That's why I often use them during funeral services, because these would be used as a way to bid farewell to people. If people came to visit you in your home, they'd maybe stay for a few days, and they would break bread with you, and you'd tell stories together around the fire, and then at some point they would have to move on in their journey. You might never see them again for years, and so you would share a drink from the quaich, because it would have some nice whiskey or brandy in it, would keep them warm for their journey, but also it's a way of saying, of securing your friendship and as I say, bidding them farewell on their journey. These are very popular in wedding ceremonies and vow renewal ceremonies here in Scotland. And they were first used, or it's said that they were first used in weddings way back in 1589. I think I've got that right. So over 500 years ago, when King James VI of Scotland, the first of England, he married Anne of Denmark, and when they married, he gave her a quaich for a wedding present. And since that time, of course, the king, if it's okay for the King of Scotland, then we're King of Scotland and England, then it's okay for everybody else. So they started to be given as gifts during wedding ceremonies, and of course they would be used in the ceremony for people sharing booze. Food and drink, especially I think in Scotland, has always been a huge part of ceremony. It's always been a real big part, but not to the extent, obviously, that we see it now, where you're getting a seven course menu, posh menu. It would actually be the community that would come together and bring the food. The mums and the grannies and the great grannies would get together and create all this beautiful food, and that would be their contribution to the marriage, to the ceremony. And the people in the community would do the same. They would bake pies, they would bake bread, they would roast meats and go out and hunt. It's Lindy's wedding, let's go out and shoot a deer. Not that I love shooting deer, but back then that's what they would have done, and that would have been their contribution to your beautiful ceremony. So again, today, whenever these are used and I do ceremonies, it's never just a case of people picking up a cup and drinking from it. What is the point of that? This is this pointing to, the ritual itself is pointing past itself, and it's pointing to this idea of unity and sharing and trust. And that's because when back centuries ago, if we go to trust, when you're holding that, because you hold it with 2 hands and you strip it like that. So if you're holding that with 2 hands, you're actually leaving this part of yourself very vulnerable very vulnerable. And of course, if you are willing to be vulnerable in somebody else's presence, then you're saying, I trust you. I trust that you're not going to take out a knife and stick it in my belly. So by taking this cup from you, this quaich from you, I am saying, I trust you. And of course, entering into a relationship with somebody, whether you're having a marriage, whether you're having a commitment ceremony, whether it's a vow renewal, you are opening yourself up to that other person. You are asking them to see you in your wholeness with all your vulnerabilities, as well as your strengths. So by taking a sip during a wedding ceremony or a vow renewal, you're saying, I am willing to be vulnerable in front of you. I'm willing to open myself up to you. But also, back in the day, sometimes we had a wee habit here in Scotland of poisoning people that we didn't like very much. Those clan chiefs were always at it. And if you've seen Game of Thrones, The Red Wedding was based in the Glencoe Massacre. So, you can go away and read about that. But yes, so if somebody offered you a quaich and you took a sip, there was a great deal of trust in that, because you were hoping that it wasn't poisoned. But if you can imagine, if I invited somebody into my home, I'm a big clan chief Lindy, and the clan chief MacDonald comes in, and I pour some whiskey in my quaich, and instead of offering it to him and making him panic because it's maybe poisoned, I would take a wee drink myself and then I would offer it. And what I'm saying is, you can trust me because I haven't poisoned it. So when couples are doing that in ceremonies, they are saying, I trust you completely. I trust you. I want to share my life with you. I want to be myself with you. I want to be able to be vulnerable with you, and for you to hold that as gently as you possibly can. So this wee wooden cup, and they come in all different materials. You get them in pewter, and you get them in, you can get oak on them, all different. That doesn't really matter. But this simple wee cup is far from simple. It is symbolic of everything that a marriage should be. And so whenever this is introduced into a ceremony, and what I do is I tend to beforehand, before we actually do the ritual, is to just talk about that, to talk about a wee bit of the symbology behind it and what it means. And then we just pour the whiskey in it. Oops. We've got a nice wee Cardew single malt here. It doesn't have to be whiskey. I believe it was originally brandy, and then it was whiskey, because us Scots like our whiskey. Time is it? But it can also be, couples sometimes have gin, they have Prosecco, they have wine, and if you don't have, outside of COVID, sometimes there would be a guest quaich, so it would be a big quaich, and it would be full of whiskey, and I don't think we'll see that for a wee while. But you can always get people to bring wee miniatures. And if there's kids there, I would suggest that it gets filled with our other national drink, Bar's Iron Brew, and the kids can have their own wee quaich because they just love that. But yes, you would pour the whiskey in, and then this wee ceremony itself, I don't have to talk to your guests. Your guests only have to sit back and watch this, because once you've let people know, you've talked a wee bit about the symbology and why you're doing it and the meaning behind it. And then you just can sit back and watch, and it becomes something really, really beautiful. And like I was saying with the saltire flag, it touches people really deep. It resonates with them because there's something in them. Remember, we all come from this deep, this long line of people back to the original people who walked there. Something in them recognises this. Something in them recognises that all spiritual teachings are just rememberings of who we are and what we already know. Can't remember who wrote that, but it's very beautiful and it's very true. So whenever we are watching these beautiful rituals and we think, oh my God, that just touches something in me, that's because part of you is connecting with your ancestors, and you're back there sitting round a fire, or in some Scottish castle, or up in the clan community sharing a wee dram from a quaich. So that's just the Quaich ceremony, the Quaich Ritual. Oh, I can see people are watching. Wait till I see. Hi, Moira and East Lothian. Nice to see you, Moira. And Anne, lovely Anne. I know I miss you too. I haven't seen you for ages. And Ronnie, hello, Ronnie from down in Cambridge. Down in Cambridge. Tell us, Ronnie, do you get asked to do many Quaich ceremonies down in Cambridge? I don't know how popular it is down south. Certainly it's very popular up here, and it's very popular with couples coming across from overseas. They seem to get this idea of connecting to something ancient, something sacred. There's something very deep and meaningful happens whenever we stop to perform one of these beautiful ancient rituals. So that's the Quaich, and it's one of my favourites. I'm going to try and do a different one. Maybe every couple of weeks I'll try and do a different one. If you're saying I do with me, you can use one of my quaichs. Of course, during COVID, everything has to get sterilised, etc. But it can also be a really nice idea for you to get your own quaich. And if you're going to do that, I would advise don't send away for it, but get somebody local to you to make it for you. So these were all made in Ayrshire. Ayrshire's my home county where I was born. These were all made in Ayrshire. I approached somebody that I saw on Facebook, runs his own wee business, and asked him if he could make some quaichs for me. So I would advise, if you're going to use your own, don't leave it to the last minute and then hop onto Amazon. As you'll hear me saying again and again, everything that is in the ceremonial space brings its own energy. Everything, the people, the quaichs, the pens, the matches, the paper you use, the flowers, everything brings its own energy. And part of my job as an interfaith minister, as a celebrant, is to create a unified energy, a single energy in the room, and to try and make it a sacred energy that everybody can feel part of, so that we feel like one. We feel part of a whole. It's no longer these ceremonies where you had 60 people sitting, and then it was a disconnect, and then there was a couple, and then there was a disconnect, and there was a person standing there talking about something that nobody else could understand or connect with. That's all changed. Couples don't want that now. Families don't want that now. Celebrants certainly don't want that now. We want to create a beautiful, sacred energy. We want to draw a circle right round your day and make it as special for you as we possibly can. But to do that, for all those you couples out there, we need your help. And the best way you can help is to engage with your ceremony and everything that's going to be in your ceremony as early as possible. So order your quaich, find somebody local so that you're supporting your local businesses, and get the items you're going to use, whether it's quaichs or hand fastening ribbons or jumping for besoms or oath and stone. Get them and bless them yourself if you can. The two of you go somewhere that's special to you, somewhere that's been special in your relationship. Take that item, take the quaich with you, and just sit with it. And just either sit in silence thinking about this journey that you're about to embark on together, or talk about your journey together up to that point and what you hope for your future. Talk about what marriage means to you. Hold the quaich in your hands as you do so, and imbue it with your energy, the energy that you want to bring to your marriage. And I promise you, I was going to say it sounds daft. I don't care if anybody thinks it sounds daft, because it's no daft. I've been doing this for a long time, and I absolutely 100% know the difference in energy if thought and care and time has been given to the actual ceremony part and all the elements that are in it. So do that, and I promise you, your day will be more beautiful, more meaningful, and more sacred than you could ever have thought possible. Okay, thanks to all those who've been watching today. It's been lovely chatting to you, and I'll see you back here in a couple of weeks. Okay, fair fall.